If you want to travel full time and you are freaked out about how much money you're going to spend or how you're going to track all that spending, this is the video for you. We had over 100 requests on a video about how to track your spending, how to manage your travel budget. This is the video all of you have been asking. Steve is the star of the video, Mr. Excel spreadsheet himself. This is the video to help you figure out how to do your travel spend.
Hi, we're really glad you're here. We are Chris and Steve, a retired senior couple who sold our house, our car, and everything in them in Denver, Colorado in 2021, and we've been traveling the world full-time ever since with just our 2 carry-on suitcases. You may know us as Eat, Walk, Learn. We have a weekly newsletter that we publish on Substack, so please be sure to subscribe over there or come to our Facebook group where we post what we're doing almost every single day. On our website, you'll find over 200 locations to inspire you, and you can also read about our entire Nomad life journey in our book series on Amazon.
So yeah, in this video, we're going to do some exciting things. And we're going to have some specific demos, some live demos on how we do our how we track our spending, how we compare it to budget. There's going to be a secret trick that we're going to
secret sauce
that we're going to show you at the end. Something called a pivot table. If you always wanted to know what a pivot table is, you're going to see a live demonstration on how easy it is to set this up and know exactly how much you're spending and be able to compare that to a budget in a nice visual way so that you're confident that you're tracking your spending versus a budget. So we travel 365 days a year. A lot of people want to go on a trip and they want to track their spending for a trip. That's okay, but we're always on a trip. We're tripping always.
So in this video, we're going to show you some of the tools that people use and talk a little bit about what those tools are and the tool we use that we absolutely 100% recommend, and it's free. We're also going to talk about the impact of exchange rates and how to manage exchange rates or understand what exchange rates you're getting as you're paying for things. We're going to give you a ton of tips about travel budget and travel spend. And then, like Steve said, we're going to break away 5 times where Steve is going to be the star of the show and he's going to actually show you exactly how to do something. So, and those somethings include how to download your expenses, how to sort and edit things in Google Sheets, how to do the secret sauce, which is number 3. We'll tell you what that is. And also number 4, develop some pie chart tables. And finally, to compare to your spend to your actual budget. But over 100 comments from people saying they wanted this. So we want at least 100 thumbs up that you like this video. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, about spending and how and all that stuff. You go.
Yeah.
Here's Steve.
Well, yeah. So we talk about. I mean, so to me, a travel budget is like exciting. I mean, that's like cool. It's like, yeah, you're going to create a budget, but it's really, it's really not. When it comes down to it, what really gets me excited. What really gets me excited is tracking my spending and knowing how much I'm spending and being able to compare that to a budget and say, yep, I'm under budget, I'm within budget. You know what? Even if it's over budget, that's okay. It's not going to change our lifestyle.
But yeah, I think what's important about this point is there's a lot of people who haven't started traveling yet, and a lot of people who are really concerned about how much things are going to cost and how much they're going to spend.
Right.
And I think they may have a budget, like I'm going to spend $60,000 or I'm going to spend $80,000, whatever your budget is, but you're really not sure that what you think you're going to spend is actually what you're going to spend, and the ability to track spending gives people a feeling of control and a feeling of accuracy and belief that they can actually live the life and can afford the life, and they're not going to have to go back to work.
Yeah. And I have to say that in the very beginning, so we've been doing this for 5 years, right? So in the very beginning, there was a lot of anxiety around that. It's like, you're booking, hotel rooms, and let's just say it's $100, $150 a night. And you're doing it again and again and again and again and again. And then you're booking, an airline and, you're spending, okay, let's another 5, and you're spending. and you're continuously like spending money, and you're saying, there's no way I can afford this.
And a lot of people now who are doing this don't have income anymore. So they're retired, they have a fixed budget or a fixed bucket of money, or they have budgeted money for the rest of their life. And now they're just tick, 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 spin, ka-ching, 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 spin, spin, spin. And they're worried about that spend in relation to their lifelong savings and stuff. So getting control of how much you spend and understanding what your spend is will help you have a more relaxed feeling that this life is going to work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of our channel, a lot of what we do is offer kinds of tips and ideas and suggestions on how people can save money. If you want to look at this video we just did a few weeks ago about how we think we saved, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 just in accommodations in 1 year. And, you know, some very strategic methods in order to reduce your spending. But this video is about tracking the spending. So like one of the ideas is you want to make sure that you're using a credit card that has no transaction fees, because transaction fees can be huge. And every time you use a credit card, they add up a lot. So get one if you want to use a link that we have down below. We'd love for you to do that, and you could get some bonus points, and we might get some bonus points too.
But let's move on. Yeah,
that's just one tip.
Yeah. So I think what's important, that the point we want to make is a lot of people use different apps to track their spending. And we asked in our Facebook group, what apps do you use? And the number one app that people came up with usually was something like an app called Travel Spend. Now, and every day you track your expenses, you put your partner's expenses in there, whatever, and then it spits out all kinds of analytics at the end of the day. You can really get granular and really into the really minute details of every penny that you spend. We don't use these apps. We don't think they're useful for our life, but we do track our spend. So how do we do that?
Well, we track our spending basically by just using our credit cards. And, you know, we generally using Chase credit cards. And so all of our spending is being tracked by every time we swipe that card or every time we tap that card. And then at the end of the month, we just download our transactions and we can look at exactly how much we spent.
I don't know what you mean by that. So you go into the Chase app or you go into the Chase website, and then under the credit card it says download something?
Yeah, so let's cut away. I'm going to show you a little demonstration live on how you download your transactions and how you sort those and how you adjust the categories so that you know that you're tracking the right information.
Access your actual spending through Chase. And once you navigate to your credit card, you can just scroll down a little bit and find this button that's a little download button. And once you click this to download your current activity, we just need to make one little change here. Instead of showing the current display, we want to change that to a date range. And I'm just going to choose my date range for the month of June and ending on June the 30th. And then I'm going to click download. Okay, now that I've got my worksheet downloaded, it's in my downloads folder, I'm going to open up a brand new Google Sheets. So I'm using Google Sheets. You might be using Microsoft Excel. It is the same concept and the same steps that you take in order to do the functionality that I'm going to be showing you right here. So I've got a brand new sheet. I'm going to go into File and choose Import since it's in my Downloads folder. And I'm going to go to my Upload button and Browse. And there it is right there. And I'm going to choose Open. And it's going to bring that in. And then I just need to import the data. And there it is in a Google Sheets. I'm going to adjust my columns a little bit, but show you this is all of my activity, and it's sorted actually in descending order by date, and all of my spending is right there, including a payment that I made at the end of the month. Okay, I switched over here to a spreadsheet that's actually completed already. The original version that I showed you in the download has been enhanced a little bit. You can see a couple of things have changed. One is I added a column because I actually appended a couple of sheets together because Chris has some spending on her credit card. I got some spending on my credit card. So I kind of paste those all together and I create another column called card. Who's it from? Is it from me or from Chris in case I need to go back later and track that spending and answer any questions that I have. But also you can see these little triangles up here in the columns. This is called the sort and filter, and I've added this, and I'm going to show you how to do this very quickly. If you don't see it up in your toolbar, this little filter button, it's going to be over here. If you click the three dots, it's going to show some additional tools that you have. This throws people off sometimes because they don't see the three dots over here. But you can see there's a little filter button, and I can turn that off and turn that back on again. And what this allows me to do is very easily sort my information. So for example, if I want to sort it by category, I just click this little drop down arrow and click A to Z. And now I've got all my bills and utilities together, all my entertainment together, all my food and drink, and I can scroll down and see how that's all sorted together. You see a couple of things that I've highlighted for you. One is you say, what about ATM transactions? Because that's not going to be on your credit card. That's going to be on your debit card. Well, I just added that line at the end and it automatically gets included in the spreadsheet and gets sorted here. I just typed it in. I just called it ATM. And I put that in the food and drink category because typically the cash that we're spending is going to be, at the market, at, vendors, little, food vendors, things like that don't accept credit cards. And so that's just the category that I put it in. If it was something that was more significant, let's say that I spent, $1,000, had to pay cash for an accommodations, I would have made myself a little note in my calendar, just, real quickly into my calendar. So at the end of the month, when I did this, I could divide that up and I could put that into 2 or 3 lines, depending on what categories it needed to go in. In this case, it was just a simple $100 transaction of ATM, and that just went into food and drink just to keep it easy. Another thing that I did add here is some things that you might have that, again, aren't being paid through your credit card that you want to track. In this case, I've got my health insurance, I've got my Medicare payment that comes right out of my Social Security amount, and I just, again, add that into the spreadsheet as well. So I've got everything included. You also might need to adjust your categories. Sometimes things like, shopping, this is just kind of like any kind of activity that we have, things that we buy. Travel might go into, a gas category or something like that. You might want to update your categories again, just to go through and make sure that everything is the way that you want it. So go back again. You can sort these by transaction date. It's very simple to just click this and be able to look through it and make sure that you've got the right information. The other thing I like to do is I like to sort it by amount. And this shows me my big expenses, and I might add a little memo just to remind myself what were some of these large expenses for. And so I can keep track of that in a little memo category. The other thing is I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. You see these are all in negative. Negative means it was spent. It was money that went out, which can be a little bit distracting. I'll show you how to fix that later. But at the very bottom, it shows me my returns. And I think this is really important because if you're using other apps to track your spending, and then you make a change, you might not remember on how to reverse that and change that. But in this case, since I'm getting, paying for things with my credit card and returning with the same credit card, it's automatically being tracked. So my actual spending is very accurate.
So so it's great. So you've got all those expenses and you're categorizing themselves. When you're out and you're processing while you're out how much you're spending, okay, and you kind of have to. It's sometimes it's hard. Sometimes the currency conversion rate will be like 7.2 to 1. That's a hard number to figure out in your head as you're spending money.
Yeah.
So I can see the advantage of going into the travel spend app and going, well, $2, 300 pesos is $2.72, right, as you're spending it. But I think for us, we just, as we're out shopping, we kind of, spitball like what we're spending based on this quick math that we might do in our
Yeah,
heads, right? But we don't worry about it in relation to how it shows up on the credit card, because the credit card is going to show us in dollars. And we're
exactly.
not, and I mean, I guess we could the next, because it will take maybe 24 hours for a transaction to show up on your credit card. So the next day we could go back and look to see how much something cost. But on a day to day basis, it's not that big of a deal to us, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's an important thing, is that we're not looking at how much did I spend today versus how much I spend yesterday versus how much I spent the day before.
Right.
We're looking at a month. So our budget is set up for the year, and we break it down by month, and we do track our spending by month versus a monthly budget. But it's not like a January budget versus a February budget. It's just 1/12 of our annual number.
Right.
And I think that's an important other consideration, is that we just track what we're spending as we're spending it. We're not doing what's called accrual accounting. So for example, if I buy an airline ticket today, it's going to show up in today's expenses, but that flight might not be for 2 months,
Right.
but it's showing up in today's expenses. So we know that there's going to be a variability. In fact, I'll show a chart here of how much we spent by month versus our budget. You can see how much it goes up and down and up and down and up and down, but it doesn't matter to us as long as for the year it comes out and it's okay and we've hit our annual budget. I don't freak out about the monthly variations.
Right. So for somebody who is really, really worried about their spend, and maybe they're in their first year, or they're trying to figure out, can we afford this lifestyle? How would you advise them? Let's say at the end of the year, they've been tracking their spending like we do, okay, like wholesale rather than like macro rather than micro, okay,
Yeah.
and they get to the end of the year and they're over budget by $4,000, let's say. I think if someone had been tracking on a day-to-day $2.72 for a cup of coffee, it might be easier for them to go back into the annual numbers and go, oh, well, since we spent $732 on coffee and we were over by our budget, if we cut out coffee, then we would do better on our budget next year. I would advise, like, look at your pace of travel. Maybe if you're over budget by 5% and you went to 37 places, maybe next year you go to 30 places. Maybe you slow your travel down, because every time you move, that's where your expenses really start adding up. Movement is expensive. Mobility is expensive. When you're staying in hotels 1 or 2 nights rather than in an Airbnb on a 30-day rate, which is usually 50% off the weekly rate, right? When you
Yeah.
stay for a month,
Yeah.
all of a sudden your accommodations get reduced because you're taking advantage of economies of scale on your accommodation. Or maybe instead of flying, maybe you take a bus instead. I mean, there's ways to modify your mobility to reduce cost, and the pace of your mobility to reduce cost. Because like you said, it's not about the cup of coffee, right? It's about the overall lifestyle. And if you can adjust something in the lifestyle to spend less money, if you're concerned about that because you're over budget, that's what you look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we're talking about, what I think the power here is really being able to know, to track what you're actually spending. Because if you don't know what you're spending and you just feel like you're spending too much, that's kind of an anxious, it's like, well, how much is too much? How much are you spending and how much do you want to spend? So
Right.
we're going to cut away because I'm going to show you another demo. This is the secret sauce on how to create a pivot table, which is in one click, how to summarize all your spending and take it out of that huge spreadsheet, and let's boil it down so we can look at it by category and compare.
Okay, this is exciting. We learned how to sort our information very easily and how to add things to our spreadsheet. Now it's time to summarize it. And this is the secret sauce. And the secret sauce here is what's called a pivot table. It sounds a little bit intimidating, but it's simple. And I want to show it to you first. I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my sheet and show you where I have a little tab that says Pivot Table 1. When I click on that, I don't want you to look at this part yet. Just look at this part on the left-hand side. It's showing me category and all of my categories and a sum of the amount that I spent and my total in 1 second. I can see all that information. Now, how do you do that? And then we'll go back and worry about this part here over on the right. I'm going to go back to my detail sheet. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my Insert menu and scroll down to Pivot Table, and I'm going to select Pivot Table. And it wants me to do a new sheet or existing sheet. Always do a new sheet because you're never quite sure. You don't want to overwrite any information. So just keep it on New Sheet, click Create. And then it's got this table here with some information on the right-hand side. Can be a little bit intimidating, but what I want to do for my rows is I want to have my categories. So I'm just going to come up here down to my rows and click Add and choose Category. And you see how my table has changed. And then I have to fill in the numbers over here. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, and Values, I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to put Amount. Again, this is the amount column that was in my spreadsheet. And there it is. All of my categories from my detailed spreadsheet, everything is summarized by category with a total at the bottom, showing you instantly that I spent $4,133 in the month of June. It's still showing up as a negative amount, and I'll show you kind of how we fix that in the next step. But I can see how much I spent in bills and utilities, how much I spent on entertainment, etc. The biggest categories, since it's sorted alphabetically, is my travel and my housing. Those are at the bottom. So we're going to fix that to make it a little bit more visually appealing. So I'm going to go back to my Pivot 1 table where I showed you what I did this before. What I want to do is I want to compare that against my budget for the month. Now, I've got this table over here on the right-hand side. Let's take a look at this. First thing is look at this budget column. So where did this come from? Well, we have an annual budget of $66,000 per year. That breaks down to $5,500 per month. And the individual categories was allocated for the year based on history. So I'm not going to go through the entire process that I did that, but these are our budget categories by month, again, based on the annual budget divided by 12. And the spend column is the same thing that's in my pivot table, except I've just turned it around and made it positive instead of negative, because dealing with negative numbers is kind of awkward. And I also rearranged the categories. So I've got housing on the top, food and drink, groceries, travel. Those are my important categories at the very top. Now, the next column is my difference, and this is to say, are you over or under budget by category? In total, we were under budget by $1,366, but for each category, that formula is pretty simple. I'm just going to go ahead and erase what I have here right now and show you how I did that. I'm going to first hit my equals sign, and that starts the formula. And I'm going to say it's my budget. I'm going to click on this cell first, and then hit my minus sign because I want to subtract how much I spent. So in this case, it's F2 minus E2, and that's $1,131. So I came in under my budget, and I like to show a positive amount for under, and it'll be a negative for if I went over the budget. And then if I want to just copy that down, I just take my pointer and when it turns to a cross, drag that down, and it fills in all those numbers automatically and shows that in total, there's about 1,366 that I was over my budget. Now the percent difference column, I'm going to do that over here. The same thing, I'm going to erase what I have here to show you exactly how I did that. Let's just take first the equal sign again and do the difference. Google is trying to prompt me and tell me how I should actually create this formula. There's probably a dozen different ways to actually do this. The way I do it is I want to do the difference, which is how much it was off, and I want to do that as a percentage of the budget. So I want to actually click on the divide sign and then the budget here in F2. And now I've got G2 divided by F2, hit enter, and then again, get the crosshairs and drag that down. And you can see in each category. Now there's some wild kind of differences here, and I'm not too concerned about the differences plus or minus on a monthly basis. I'm looking for the annual trends, and to me, I think this is pretty good, being 25% under budget for the month of June, and I know what's coming up, and I have an idea of how my spending is going to be changing over time, that maybe that 25% is going to go away pretty quickly.
Wow, pivot tables. Wow, how exciting. You spreadsheet geek, you just love it.
Yeah, and people are like, well, how do you, because I mean, the idea is you got all of this data and you're spending money on all kinds of things and you have this giant spreadsheet. Well, what does it mean? Well, here's what it means.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
And just, we didn't say this at the beginning, but we're using Google Sheets. We're not using Microsoft Excel. Google Sheets is free.
It's, yeah.
And that's why we use it.
And the functionality is almost identical.
Yeah.
So if you've picked up
At this level.
From my demo, easily transfer these skills to Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, and Excel has many more features, but the features we need are readily available in Google Sheets, and we just use it, and it's free. So, and you can also use it on your phone and on your, anyway, and then we can share it. So you guys all know Google stuff. We love it. Okay, so I'm a visual person. Like if you gave me a spreadsheet with columns and columns and columns and columns and columns of numbers, and then you'd like try to rainbow it with different rows, I'd be like, dude, you got to make this easier for me.
Yeah. And that's also, you have people who are, really into the data and really into the numbers. It's easy for that type of person to be able to synthesize it and understand, what does this big chart mean and what are all these numbers mean? I like a visual representation as well. I want to know, like, if I am, if I actually spent $2,842, compare that to my budget and show me, how much am I spending by category and how much am I spending over time, but give it to me in a nice visual and a nice pretty way to look at it.
I want like a blueberry pie chart. So how do you do pie charts and stuff? Are you going to do a video about that?
So we're going to cut away now and we're going to do a little, visual representation again, a couple of clicks, and you can show in a nice chart how you're tracking your spending versus category and versus your budget.
I want to select the range, and I'm just going to highlight the category and the spend column and go all the way down to bills and utilities. I did not include the total. We don't want to throw off our chart by including the total because that's going to skew the numbers and actually not be an accurate representation. Now that I've got that little section highlighted, I'm going to go up to my insert menu again, like I did with pivot table, but this time right above it, I want to click on chart. And in less than a second, there is my chart, my visual representation. It's not exactly the way I want it. I actually want it to be a pie chart. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to tell it, instead of a column chart, that I want it to be a pie chart. And then I want to come over to customize, and some of this might be cut off a little bit, but let's go to chart style first and let's make it 3D. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to come down to my axis and titles. Google Sheets doesn't really do a very good job with putting the titles in properly, I think. So I'm just going to come up here to my title text and I'm going to erase what's there, and I'm going to say actual versus, I'm going to say actual spending June 2026. And there we have it. I want it to be centered, so I'm just going to tell it to center it and make it bold. Okay, that looks good. And now I have my visual, nice representation of my spending by percentage that shows that 34% of my spending was in travel, 13% was in housing, food and drink 20%, groceries 7.3%. And I can look at a nice representation and really get an understanding of where I'm spending my money, in this case, for the month of June.
Wow. Pie charts, I still want some blueberry pie. I mean, we're in Maine. I need some blueberry pie, but that's cool. I want you to go do some pie charts on my book sales.
I will do, okay. Yeah. On your book. So what book are we talking about?
I got many books. If you are interested in Nomad life, you can go get any one of my 3 books. The first one, 2 Carry-Ons and a Plan, talks about how to do Nomad life with to-do lists and worksheets and workbooks, and how do you get your insurance? How do you sell your house? How do you get your domicile set up? The second book was Nomad Life, which is the day-to-day activities of how we live our life and what happens on a day-to-day basis. And then the third book, Wanderlust Wisdom, it wasn't us talking, it was 31 other couples talking about how they live their life. So go do me a spreadsheet about my book sales so I can see which one sells the most.
I will I will do that. And you want a pie chart. You want a blueberry pie chart.
A blueberry pie chart in
Blueberry
different colors
pie
of blue.
chart coming up.
But you know, we joke about all of this, and we do take it very seriously. Once a month, we put our numbers down. In our fiscal years in May, you guys have probably heard us talk about that before. In May, we put all our numbers together, and then we do all this comparison over time, like how we did this month versus last month, and this year versus last year, and last year, and this summer versus last summer, all this stuff. So how do you do that in a spreadsheet? Like, how do you compare stuff?
Yeah, well, so it gets a little bit more complicated because I take my totals for the month, and I actually have another spreadsheet that gives me each monthly total so that I compare those. So that's how I did the chart where I compared the actual monthly spending versus budget. I just transpose. I just take a number and put that on a different sheet and track that.
And wasn't that fantastic? You know, you can clearly see that I'm faking some enthusiasm here, but in truth, I mean, your husband may bring you roses and chocolates. My husband brings me spreadsheets, and that makes me really happy.
And sometimes roses and chocolates.
Yeah, but not enough.
But the spreadsheets are...
Do a spreadsheet of your spreadsheets versus your roses and your chocolates. Do a comparison. That'd be fun to put up.
I could do that. I could do a
Anyway,
spreadsheet.
truly, I love your spreadsheets.
I know you do.
Yeah. But I do ask him, though, you know, if you watched our video, we'll put it up here a couple weeks ago, of how much money we spent over the last 5 years. So $265,000, I think it was, whether we were on budget or not over 5 years, and how it panned out each year over 5 years. I ask Steve all the time, like, why are we still tracking our spend? We certainly have some habits and some behaviors that allow for that create the consistency of how we spend our money.
Right.
So I say to him, why are we still tracking? Why do we have to do this? We kind of have the skill set and the habits that we don't have to track anymore. And you say to me,
it's fun.
I love it. It's fun.
I enjoy doing it. I see it as kind of a game. I think in the beginning, again, 5 years ago, we first started traveling full time, and it was like there was some anxiety over how much money are we really going to spend? You know, we had this idea that we were going to spend $4,000 a month on everything. And it actually turned out to be pretty true. We were very close to that number when we first started traveling. So then at that point, I should have said, okay, it's okay. I don't need to worry about this anymore.
Situations
and
change.
I'm not.
But the situations change. I mean, inflation came in. Even though we are still have the same spending habits, the expense of those habits has changed because conditions have changed. And so we started off at $48,000 annually.
4,000.
Now we're up to $66,000. Not because, well, we've changed a few, and you can watch our video about the things of what we have changed and how we spend, but our basic kind of infrastructure for how Steve and I spend money has remained the same, but because of inflation and the cost of things, and a few other little triggers, that's changed how much we're spending compared to budget.
Yeah, it has. And the idea is that, you know, we're okay with it. We're not trying to change our lifestyle in order to fit a budget number. We know we're in sync on the kinds of things that we want to do and how much we're willing to pay for that. And we know that there are other people in other travels. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own level of comfort of how much they want to spend, whether you're sleeping in a tent or you're in a luxury, resort hotel. Are you fine dining, or are you eating, chips by the side of the road? You have your level of comfort. We have our level of comfort. And the idea is to be able to understand, yes, am I within my comfort zone? That's where I am.
And I think what's important, though, I mean, we talk about couples all the time. Certainly solos have their numbers. But what is so beautiful about the relationship that Steve and I have is we are really in sync about how to spend money and what to spend money on. We know a lot of couples that are not in sync. You know, he wants to stay at luxury resorts. She wants to stay in economy. He wants to golf every day. She wants a massage every day.
Yeah, I suppose that also could cause anxiety if you're actually tracking it too. And if
Yeah.
you're actually saying you're looking at a number and you're saying, what's this $2,800 for? Oh, it was for massages. What do you mean it's for massages?
Yeah, at the end of the year, that could add up and put you over budget. And then there's a conversation about, well, if you didn't get so many massages, we would be in budget. That's a
Yeah.
tough trail to walk. So, if this spending has been helpful for you, or if you're the first set of couples that get along and talk about everything, or if you're the bottom set of couples, not the bottom, the second set of couples that really disagree about budget, tell us. We want to hear about it. Put your comments down below. Give us some little talking points or things that we can help you solve maybe in a next video if you guys are in disagreement, or if you've come up with a really great way to manage those disagreements on how to spend money. We would love to hear from you. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, do all the things, follow us everywhere, and we will see you next week.